Hello guys, welcome to the MSTW 2022's Energies Talk. I'm Jiaxiang, your moderator for today, along with Sita as assistant moderator. Malaysian Students Technology Week is Malaysia's largest student-led technology conference, and we are back again this year as a 9-day fully virtual event filled with talks, workshops, and a hackathon to look forward to. As for the theme of MSTW 22 this year, we have chosen sustainability to highlight the rising demands from the increase of global population coming into direct conflict with the health of our planet. We aim to share with participants on the three pillars of sustainability, namely social, environmental, and economic. Balancing all three pillars ensures the protection of the environment while improving the quality of life. To complement the team, we got four sub-teams in our MSTW, namely data, AI, energy, and biotechnology. Multiple workshops and conferences are held around these sub-teams. Today will be the third day of our Big Days event, filled with workshops and also a case study finals in regarding energy. So back to the event, our talk today is dedicated for you, our audience, to understand and be aware of the importance of sustainable energy. Our first speaker today is IR Noor Izzidin, the head of solar subsidiary under renewable energy sector in Worldwide Holdings. At the same time, Sir Izzidin is also an industry advisory panel and adjunct professor at 7 universities, including University Malaya, University Technology Mara, and University Tun Abdul Rahman. With his 18 years of technical and leadership role for semiconductor, property, data center and telecom, and sustainably and energy, we believe that IR Izzidin will bring us an interesting and meaningful talk today. Do focus on the content of his talk, as we'll have cash prizes giving away at a quiz sections right after the sharing sessions by IR Izzidin. So without any further ado, let's welcome IR Izzidin to have his talk on energy. Welcome, sir. Sorry, sir. I think you didn't turn on your mic.
Hi, okay, thank you to the moderator, Jiaxiang, and thank you again to the organizer for organizing and inviting me for this short talk, which is, I believe, will be less than 1 hour. So, as mentioned by our moderator, there will be some 2 to 3 questions that are going to be asked towards the end of the this session, which is in the next 50 minutes, and I believe there will be some token to be given. So if you want the token, I think you can focus doing my presentation for the next 45 to 50 minutes. Okay, I think I straight away to go to my slide. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I believe you all can see my slide. Okay, so my topic for the next 50 minutes, we'll be talking about the energy saving initiative projects. So I believe nowadays, for the past 2 years plus, we have been talking about the grid, the energy, the consumption, and the way we run our life, especially work from home, study from home, or work from everywhere, or study from everywhere. As long as you have your laptop, you have your gadget, and also a stable broadband. However, since 2020 and until now, 2021, 2022, we have seen so many things have changed, especially on the energy sector, especially on the carbon emission, and also especially related to the what we call it, the climate change and the global temperature. I think recently we have seen there's a war between Ukraine and Russia, and where the Western European countries are relying on the gas supply from the Russian, and I believe they also struggle to go towards renewable energy, to increase the renewable energy usage rather than rely on the coal fire and also LNG gas to power up their power plant in the next 3 months, 6 months, even 1 year. Even that's part of the energy portion that we have seen in European, where Western Europe rely on Russia and is affected during the Ukraine war. And also not forget on eastern part where we have China. Recently, there's a provocation between China and also US, and we know that China is a major supplier, major producer of solar panel in this world, which is, I believe, they are controlling the market around 70 to 80%. So if there's a disruption due to war or due to whatever political it is, I think it will affect. So I believe with this energy saving, it become more prominent an issue for you to do an energy saving. So before I start my slide, just to let you know that my home at Ampang, Selangor is a double story. Even though I'm in charge of solar, I didn't put any solar at my home because I managed to maintain average 100 ringgit of electricity bill per month for the past 2 to 3 to 4 years already by doing energy conservation, which is mean that before you sleep, you unplug all your plug socket outlet, you off only the one that you left, most probably your fridge, your freezer, your refrigerator, and also most probably your broadband power supply only. The rest, you only open 1 or 2 aircon only lah. And I believe if I tell you guys that at home in Ampang, within Klang Valley, Kuala Lumpur, even if I drive my 4-wheel, my temperature car aircon is only 29 Celsius, and I sleep at home at night with my wife and my kids. We only open aircon at 26 Celsius. So I believe that is one of the key that I managed to control my energy saving lah. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Sorry. Okay, so nothing much to shout out about me. I'm entering 40 years old this year. These are some of my academic background, my professional and also competency. I'm a project management professional and also energy manager lah. And also just to let you all know that I'm not yet finished my PhD. Already more than 2/3 already my PhD with the University Technology Malaysia UTM by research, not by survey, but doing some optimization on energy using MATLAB lah. Okay. I think before we start on the energy, I think we all, if you notice that everyone talk about renewable energy, especially solar. If you see in the mainstream news or even social media, people talking about solar, because I believe corporate sector, multinational company or even government-linked company in any countries, or especially in Malaysia, they found it solar sounds sexy rather than talking about you increase your temperature aircon at home or at office. So I think before we go to the slide, I would like to stress is that before you go into solar, you need to do some energy conservation. You need to be disciplined in terms of using the electricity supply. I believe when you stay at hostel, some of you are fortunate to have the hostel together with the aircon or maybe together or with the fan. I think nowadays most of the house are using LED type of lighting. If you see for the past 2 years during the COVID-19, during the lockdown, many people are, order online from Lazada, Shopee and so on the LED lighting, and think many people nowadays have like a compound lighting using LED powered by the solar, which is I think is one of the first step towards energy saving. So that is one of the way to do energy conservation, energy efficiency. But before that, what I would like to mention is that you need to start with the energy conservation at the bottom by discipline in using your electricity. After you finish using your microwave or oven, switch off the power supply, even take out the socket outlet. Then after that, if you have like a fluorescent lighting, then you change it to the LED, which is nowadays is quite cheap, 10 to 20 ringgit or a few dollars only in terms of the currency exchange. And after that, most probably you use the high efficiency aircon. But for your info, I did not use any high efficiency or inverter or direct current rather than alternating current type of aircon because I already trained my wife and my kids to be disciplined. But my parents' house, my siblings' house, I cannot control them because they have a multiple aircon. Even my house also have two aircon of 1.5 horsepower each. One at the one at the we call ground floor, one at the first floor lah. But again, I start to discipline my kids. One of the way is like using your air purifier, humidifier to control the temperature and the humidity. Trust me, if you can control the temperature, especially the humidity, if you have kids later on, like me now, your kids will be less aggressive lah, because especially you stay in the city, the pollution of air is the air is not really clean lah. Okay, I think let's not talk about it. I think we better go to start. If not, we cannot finish by 2:50. So a bit on my side, I'm currently working with Worldwide Holding. Is owned by the state, the richest state in Malaysia, which is Selangor state government. So we are building a 1,200 megawatt, 3 billion ringgit power plant nearby the Port Klang there. And we also building waste to energy, one of its kind in Malaysia. I think Singapore already have it before. It's like you process and burn all your waste, the municipal waste, and turn it the heat generated can to be supplied towards the turbine, and then the turbine will be rotated and generate the electricity. Same goes to the hydro, but hydro is using water. We call it the supply is continuous. Whereas in terms of waste, I can say that Selangor, we at the Selangor, if we combine together with Kuala Lumpur, we are generating waste something like almost 6,000 to 8,000 ton per day. So in the near future, I think state like Selangor, even Kuala Lumpur, already have a target not to open any landfill. You know landfill, the way that you throw all your waste and then compose it and make it like a big we call it small mountains and so on. So you cover it with some land and then do some treatment. Then after that, you open a park on top of it lah. But there's a gas generated from the landfill, which is you can use it like a methane that you can generate biogas. Then biogas you can sell it to our utility, which is TMB, then to generate electricity lah. Okay, so some of our project hydro, we control the hydro in the state of Selangor, and also some biogas, and not forget also solar. But the most promising is the waste to energy, because we have 3 projects in Selangor, 1 project in Johor lah. So I think we start first. Before you start any energy saving activities, you need to do some audit, simple audit. I think CEO of General Electric last time, Jack Welch, have mentioned before, if you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So you need to measure what is the consumption. I think if some of you came from the mechanical background, I think you know there's a conversion from the kilowatt to horsepower is times 0.746 for each kilowatt in terms of the horsepower of the aircon. So from there, I believe the efficiency of the aircon will be reduced from time to time. So you can measure anything nowadays in the Google website. If you Google, there are many social media or even website sharing about how can you measure your power consumption. The power consumption based on your electrical appliance. I think nowadays people are talking about electric vehicle. Electric vehicle is one of the good things, but again, electric vehicle made of a lithium-ion battery. So there's always an issue. People talking about the environmental pollution when you produce the hybrid battery, the lithium-ion battery. But I think that one you can do your own research, and then from there, I cannot say that I supporting electric vehicle or not. But again, we need to see the cost and benefit. So a typical energy management in any organization, regardless whether it's a commercial building or industry building, it will be consist when you later on, when you graduated and you work, if you involved in the energy, especially related to the commercial industry, it will be headed by this kind of organization where you have the CEO or directors, then you have the secretary or the energy manager, then after that you have a lot of others departments, which is something like IT department, finance, HR, human resource, and facility. These are some of the examples that I want to show you on. So in terms of the energy conservation, what you can do is to investigate some of the usage of energy consumed. So if to let you know that in a commercial building, office building, or shopping mall, the culprit in terms of the energy usage is always the air conditioning. I think especially at home, I think nowadays people, if they sleep at night, they always mention that they will turn on the aircon at 18 Celsius, 22, 24. Sometimes it's quite troublesome and it's quite we call it confusing. You see, people in Malaysia, we are in a hot climate environment, and then we like, when we went to London or we went to Japan, then after that, when we come back, when we stay here, we like to turn on the aircon up to 18 Celsius, 20 Celsius, or 16 Celsius. In the end, you wear blazer or jacket, maybe more than one layer when you sleep at night. But whereas, if I'm not mistaken, every time you lower the aircon, it will increase. If I'm not mistaken, if you lower the aircon by 1 or 2 Celsius, it will increase around average 5% of electricity bill every time you lower at least 2 Celsius of the aircon. So in the nutshell, if you talk about energy management, let's say the one that consume a lot of energy, such as microwave, air conditioner, you call it as a significant energy usage, or SEU. So, and then after that, you can identify the measure and so on. Sorry, this slide is a mix of slide when I teach energy management course for the working peoples, which is engineers. So I just want to introduce you a bit here, so you can do the potential saving, and at the same time, you also need to review some energy management strategy. So these are some of the important slides, quite important, related to today talks. Some of the slide, one of the 3 slides that are quite important. The first, I think in general, people are talking about 3 types of energy audit. The first one will be the walkthrough audit, where you have a visual inspection, desktop studies. Then after that, you have a detailed audit, where you quantify and you do some economic analysis. And after that, when you want to change the, let's say, air conditioning system or motors or pumps or even lighting, then you do the investment grade audits. So these are 3 types or 3 levels of energy audit, from walkthrough audit to detailed audit, and finally to the investment grade audit. My experience, most of industry in Malaysia, in commercial building, they do until detailed audit or detailed energy audit here in Malaysia, whereas critical facilities such as hospital are doing investment grade audit when you want to change the air conditioning system, because it's in fact the total operation of the hospital, especially the operating theatre and also ICU. So these are some of the measurement and survey where you do the data logging, you do the spot measurements, and so on. So these are some of the findings you can find from the energy audit if you enter the energy industries later on. So you can decide the message, evidence, and also some of the logic, which is, I believe, when you do your final year project, where you have been tasked to present in more visual and eye-catching. It later on also the same concept, the same principle of presentation, to make the audience, especially the industry advisory panel, or even your lecturers or professor, it must be present in a visual and eye-catching forms, using a suitable charts, graph, and also diagram. So some of the potential electricity saving system. The first one will be, okay, I think it's too early for me to mention, but again, we are in Malaysia. Our utility is a TMB. They have a different tariff for commercial, for low voltage, for industry, for plantation, or even for the housing and residential. I think for the past 2 years plus, we have seen increase in there's an increase of tariff in some element of the electricity bill, especially for commercial and industry tariff. Whereas the residential tariff in Malaysia, we are still protected by the government in terms of the electric increase. Power factors is one of the things so that you will not affect the utility line on distribution and transmission. And don't forget also the reduction of maximum demand. If some of you have time later on, you can Google what is the maximum demand. And don't forget also some losses. I believe if you are an electrical student, you may or already study electromechanical device related to the transformer core or generator core. There's a step up, step down. All that is to reduce the losses at the distribution and also the transmission level. So these are some normal electricity tariff for commercial. You call it C1, C2, where you have seen. What I can assure is that the tariff have not been increased tremendously for the past 2 to 3 election due to, I believe, what I can say, uncertainty in the political in Malaysia lah. So that's the only thing that I can comment. So next, lighting. We know that lighting are using LEDs. Oh, sorry. You start first with motor. You can high efficient motor. You change the motor. I think you know that like internal combustion engine (ICE), especially for mechanical student, you have learned about ICE, internal combustion engine, which is the car that we are using now, our petrol car, diesel car. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the efficiency is only 40 to 60%. Whereas if you're using electric vehicle car, it's like your inverter or rectifier to convert AC and DC, the efficiency is beyond 80 or 90% plus. So aircon, as I mentioned earlier, I give an example. At my home, I didn't use any high efficient or efficient aircon, which is more towards inverter aircon or direct current aircon, but I'm using alternating current AC aircon, which is, I believe, electrical or mechanical student understand what I mentioned. Even though I didn't use that one, I still can control the aircon. What I can see, if you want to install solar at home, provided if your electricity bill is beyond 300, 400 ringgit or 500 ringgit per month. If your electricity bill below 200 or 100 ringgit in average per month, I think you better do some energy conservation first lah, rather than buying a high efficiency aircon or even putting solar. So how about efficient building system? So these are some of the example of efficient building last time in Putrajaya. So some of it is related to a bit on architectural, which is architect engineering. I believe there's no architect engineering course in Malaysia, but there is course related to architect engineering, which is related to buildings and facility design and planning and operational back in UK and so on. And for that, I think in Malaysia, if you have a big construction, the engineers need to work closely with the architects and also quantities surveyor in terms of determine the best orientation of building. I think the best orientation, you not face the east and west. Usually you face north and south. You don't want to face the sunrise and also on east to west. So you are facing north and south and minimize the east and west orientation. Other than that, we have some example of natural daylight building, which is such as energy commission building in Putrajaya. They are using natural daylight, especially they size the glazing, they size the ceiling walls, and also the colors and so on. All are harmony to reduce the air conditioning usage. And don't forget also facade. Facade is more towards the building materials that can minimize the solar and heat gain. And not forget also natural ventilation. I think one of the best example of natural ventilation, if you have time fortunate to go, you can go to Hospital Kuala Lumpur, or you call it General Hospital, which is have been built like what? Some of the buildings are already more than 50 years, 70 years, 80 years old. That is one of the best design in terms of the natural ventilation with a good facade and so on. So air movement, these are some of the speed of the air movement. Most of the time, we are in the office or school or university where the air movement is between 0.25 millisecond to 0.5 second, where you can feel the fresh at the comfortable lamps, but not at the cool temperatures. So daylight is, how do you get the daylight? By optimizing the height, high ceiling, double volume, and the size of the daylight. How about natural ventilation? You have the orientation prevailing facing the wind direction. How about the daylight view? You have the size and height suit to the occupant position and also external features and so on. So, and also not forget, last but not least, what lacking here in Malaysia that we need to improve further is to plant more trees, or even to have a good a strategic landscape. This landscape can reduce the heat gain to several forces by providing shading and so on. And not forget also solar. I think we talk later about the renewable energies. Some of the renewable energy application. I think, if I'm not mistaken, TMB, our utility, going to embark into a journey or process to change majority of the street lighting in Malaysia using solar power, if I'm not mistaken, in the near future. So energy efficiency solution, these are some of the energy proposal. You need to be technically robust. It must be supported by the decision makers, which is related to the project management or stakeholder. And not forget, last but not least, financial. So some of the things that the university graduate nowadays need to prepare, beside hands-on or well-versed in the theoretical and even in some of the technical knowledge, is to have understanding and also know how to use Excel related to the doing financial calculation or even financial modeling and so on. So some of the process, let's say you have energy, EE is the energy efficiency, you get measured, then you do some risk analysis and sensitivity. Then after that, technical project is one thing, but the most important in any project, you need to have a funding. It's either you get the corporate loans from your parent company, from the government, even from the bank, or you do some leasing, or even you do a zero cost, which is the profit sharing from the energy saving being distributed between the vendor, contractor to implement, and also the building owner. You call it energy performance contract, or EPC, the acronym. So, okay, I will not go to this one slide. So this is okay. In any if you work as engineers later on, you need to come up with a proposal. So simple proposal related to energy efficiency, usually you come up with a summary where you setting out the key element. Then after that, you brief why the project meet the organization needs and benefit, followed by the description and also the present status. And after that, you will have how the project that can improve the situation in all aspect and so on. Is there any relevant advantages and disadvantages? Then followed by the alternative. You need to have some alternative or consider any project proposed, and the financial justification. So the common lingo that we always talk with the finance is all about payback period, net present value, NPV, and also internal rate return, IRR, and also the interest rate by the banks or by the central bank, which is bank. And lastly will be the sensitivity and also the risk. Okay, next we go to the after you have done all the energy efficiency, then only you go to the clean energy. But the problem is, some organization doesn't do any audit or didn't do the cleanup in terms of doing some activities on energy conservation and also energy efficiency. Let me check. Okay. So what are the current scenario? I think we know that recently, these are the graph from 2018. But what I can say, it doesn't change much. we are still almost 60% using coal fire, followed by the gas. Our renewable last time 3%, now already increased a bit to 5%, and hydro still hovering around 6 to 7%. We are still long way to go to achieve to use renewable energy and reduce dependency towards the coal and also gas a bit lah. So in terms of energy approach, energy atmosphere, you can assume it's like a bucket. The buildings or the commercial building, we can assume it like a leak bucket with lots of unnecessary wastage. What I can say that approximately almost or around 40% of the total energy used today is by the building. So beside buildings, there's another industry which is factories, industries that use a lot of energies. If you can introduce a lot of energy saving initiative from energy efficiency to renewable energy at buildings and industry, most probably you already tackle 2/3 of the energy usage in this world. So by plugging the holes, you are well on the way to the green energy efficiency or even inexpensive building. So what happened, I take an example on the Klang Valley last time. I think remember in MCO one during the lockdown in 2020, 2021, 2022, there's a big reduction on the CO2, on the gas emission towards our sky, which is quite clear and fresh air during the MCO. But again, at that time, people are locked down and not much movement from the human except the one that working at the essential services, which is, I believe, students like you guys, you all mostly have been tired already doing study online classes. But you can see the effect is there. If there's a less movement on the transportation, commercial industry, you can get a clear sky and fresh air like what we feel during the lockdown in 2020 and 2021. I think there's some website already done, some people already done a projection, a worst case scenario if after 2030, if there's an increase of the world temperature. That's why you see most of the country now are moving towards 1.5 Celsius reduction, because if the temperature, the world temperature increase and the sea level increase, I think we will lose most of the coastline area at the Klang Valley and at the Selangor here as example in this slide. So even in the conservative also, in by year 2050 also, the scenario will be similar to what happened in after 2030 if we didn't control or if we didn't manage the temperature, the world temperature, if we didn't reduce the carbon emission well below the current consumption now. So even the land projected in terms of the flood level is a bit moderate if the temperature increase around 1.5 Celsius. Just now is 2 Celsius, but now is 1.5 Celsius. We lost some of our big port in Klang, North Port and also West Port, which is it will affect our industry as a whole for the Klang Valley. So if by 2050 also it will be a similar if to 2030 if there's a consistent of sea level with the 1.5 Celsius at the probability of 5/5 percentile. Okay, next will be carbon footprint. Everyone now talking about carbon. What I can say now in terms of the carbon emission per kilowatt hour, coal is almost 1, whereas oil is around 0.84, which is 840 grams. Gas is almost 0.5, which is half. I think countries like Singapore already phased out all the coal-fired power plant. They are now relying on gas. So that's why the gas emission is quite low among all the countries in ASEAN countries. Whereas solar is less than 0.1 kilo or at 0.046 or 46 grams. Which is we can see here nuclear and wind is if you have a world-class maintenance with a world-class infrastructure, I believe our country can be ready to install to have a nuclear plant in the near future. So another slide that which is quite important for today is the type of the green technology. I think as commonly in Malaysia we have solar, hydro, biogas, biomass. Tide, wave, based on study, we have less than 2 meter of height of the wave in Malaysia. So it's not feasible yet in our coastline. But our biogas, biomass is from pomade, from palm oil, from furniture and so on can be used. Wind is still not visible. You need to get a constant of 5 millisecond speed to 15 millisecond speed. Most of the wind speed in Malaysia is not that constant, between 5 to 15. Even though we have Sabah, people call it as a negeri di bawah bayu, still the wind is not consistent. So what will be the future of the energy? So if you ask your parents, your siblings, your relatives, some of them already installed solar at their residential house. Some of the concept that now being implemented in Malaysia, you call it net energy metering. Whatever the electricity generated from the solar, the house will use first, and the balance will be sold back to the utility, to the TMB, and you get some income, which is in the form of reduction of the electricity bill. Whereas self-consumption, Selco, name just now is the net energy metering on the left of the slide. Selco on the right of the slide is a self-consumption where you are not selling back the electricity to the grid, to the utility. You are fully utilizing it for your own usage. But the problem is sun only available optimally between 10 a.m. to 3 to 4 p.m. only. So most of the time, peak sun hour PSH in Peninsula of Malaysia or even Sabah and Sarawak is maximum 4 hours, around 4 hours maximum. Most of the time is around 3.4 hours to 3.8 hours in a day. The most effective peak sun hour that can generate that solar can be used to generate electricity. So another topic which is gaining, which is a similar which is being used in electric vehicle, but now being used by the residential housing. The challenging part here in Malaysia is our electricity. Same goes to our oil price, still low. With the price of the hybrid battery is quite expensive, it can be used to mitigate and to reduce further during the peak load in the afternoon, or if you open the aircons and so on. But again, the business case is there, already implemented in some countries like Australia. They already implement, which is quite important in this slide, also implement hybrid battery in some of their solar farm. Malaysia not yet. Most probably by 2030 or by 2028, only the utility here and the authority plan to introduce a hybrid battery or energy storage system in our solar farm, we call it configuration in the near future, which is not now, maybe after 2020 or 2030, or year 2028 or year 2030. But however, our neighbors already matured, which is our Singapore. Our neighbors, which is Singapore, already have their own roadmap and also handbook. You can Google it. You can get all the information from the internet. This handbook and also roadmap is easily available to be downloaded from some of the government agency in Singapore. They already have the roadmap and they already have the guideline and handbook, and they already start implementing it. Some of the energy storage to reduce the consumption during afternoon or peak load at some of the residential or industry area in Singapore for the past 1 or 2 years. And even our neighbor Indonesia already have plan. I think we know Jokowi, the president of Indonesia, already met Elon Musk a few months back, and they're still in the midst of lobbying to get the electric vehicles such as Tesla to be manufactured, because they have some of the main or important element in the electric vehicle battery production. Besides, I think some of the countries that have the mineral that important to lithium ion, such as Australia, Indonesia, China, some in Argentina, some in Central African countries. So what do you mean by this energy storage system or hybrid battery? There's a two way. One of it, you charge at night, because usually in the commercial or industry tariff, the charge by the utility is quite cheap. So you charge the battery at night, then you use during daytime, because the electricity tariff that being charged by utility to the commercial industry is quite expensive. So this is some of the concept that were implemented in other countries. So in terms of the solar farm, they say you have 4 megawatt. You can put, if I'm not mistaken, in the size of a container up to 40 footer, which is 40 feet length of a container, you can put a battery size of a 1 megawatt. 1 megawatt. So in this case, in this slide, is to show that you can reduce the maximum demand, you can reduce the peak load, which is being charged additional for by our utility on top of the peak load and off-peak load. So the mechanism, the control, the SCADA system now being developed in detail, where the guideline or even the bylaw, I think more towards guideline or handbook or roadmap, going to be introduced by the government in the near future. But I believe that one will not be so different from the one that already implemented by our neighbor country, which is Singapore. Okay, so in terms of you guys as a young engineer graduate, what will be the future workforce? This slide, if you show to people from the oil and gas industry, they will not be very happy. But in reality, it most probably it might be happen soon. We will see in the next 5 to 7 or 10 years, there will be a lot of job opportunity in the renewable energy related to wind, which is if you are based in Europe, and plus solar, bioenergy, which is biogas, biomass, and geothermal. Geothermal, there is a plan last time to put the geothermal plant somewhere in Sabah Eastern Front, facing the Philippines. I think in Kudat or Sandakan or Lahad Datu, but it's not feasible because the temperature at the down there is like 500 Celsius, 200 Celsius. By the time it reach the surface is already less than 100 to 100 Celsius, so it still cannot generate or turn on the turbine so that you can generate electricity. Same goes to energy efficiency. There will be a lot of energy saving, energy conservation that need to be done by the industry, by the commercial, by the residential. Whereas what we can see, most probably the job opportunity of fossil fuel, even though we hear that Saudi Aramco, which is the most one of the richest country in the world, Saudi, they are getting more profit from the what you call it, from the coal, from the oil and gas. So in the near future, most of the job will be available in other industry, which is renewable and also EE. Okay, I think it's already 2:45. Let me check with the okay. A bit on energy. Any project that you need to embark, you need to execute, must have a financial. So these are some of the financial, which is let me zoom in, available now in Malaysia. I think recently in the budget last year mentioned about, I think our Prime Minister have also echoed together with the Petronas by having low carbon or net zero carbon emission by year 2050. I'm not sure whether I'm still alive at that time because I'm now already 40 years old. By the time it's already 70 years old. You guys are the future of the country. Most probably you can check and also helping the country to execute. So some of it you can get, some of the banks that are available to do some green project, which is solar and so on. Some of the banks here in Malaysia that are available, which is UOB, CIMB, Maybank, Alliance Bank, RHB, and the recent bank, I think if I'm not mistaken, Bangkok Bank, Hong Kong Bank, and also Affin Bank. So there's a lot of, you can ask your parent whether they already installed solar at home. I think nowadays you can get a loan with the zero interest or low interest if you put solar at home, between 2 to 10 kilowatt peak. Okay, I think that's all. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, I think I already stressed a few questions. A few items that will be important by the organizer later on for some of the quiz. So I think that's all. So anything you can contact me from my LinkedIn. I prefer to communicate with the outsider first from to LinkedIn first. Then only later on I will give my email or even my handphone numbers. Okay, I pass back to the moderator. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, sir, for the great sharing just now. So now we'll have a very quick quiz sessions that will have cash prize giving away. So do answer and give us your answer in the comment sections. First come, first serve, and only the first one who came with the first answer will got the cash prizes from us. All right. So the first questions from the presentation just now. How many level of energy audit mentions in the slide earlier? The answers can be a number, or it will be better if you can state all three level of the energy audit. All right, we'll wait for another 1 minute for the answer. I hope that you all are still fresh, reminded with all those content shared by RRZDin just now. Or you guys can also simply guess a number. What is the level of energy audit mentioned in the slide earlier? All right, so I think the first answers came in from So Suryana. So she said 3. Is that the correct answer, sir?
Yes, you have three level of energy audit, but I think the question will be what are the three? If any one of you can name it, if no one can name it, at least three is sufficient already.
Yeah. So I think the answer, because So is the first one who answers 3. So the answers are 3, which are the first walkthrough audit, detailed audit, and also investment grade audit. So there are 3 of them. All right, next for the second question. How many type of green technology is already implemented here in Malaysia? How many type? So I believe it's also mentioned in this slide before. So we'll wait for some time because I believe there are some delays in the live stream. So we'll wait for another 1 minute for the answer. How many types of green technology already implemented here in Malaysia? So what's the answer by our audience? I think, if not mistaken, sir have mentioned around 6 type of green energies in globally, but how many of them are implemented here in Malaysia? All right, so there comes an answer by Vic Nash.
Mhm.
He said 2, and is that the correct answer, sir?
I believe
He said
there's a few
2.
already. Is a solar, biogas, biomass, hydro, and there's another one I didn't mention, which is waste to energy lah. But waste to energy is
Hmm.
part of the biomass lah.
All right, so the correct answer should be 4.
Yeah.
So I think no one guessed the correct answers. So the prizes will be accumulated to the next question. All right. So there are a total of 4 types of green energy applied in Malaysia. They are solar, hydro, biogas, and biomass. All right. Next, the last questions for this session. So, is there any hybrid battery or energy storage already installed at solar farm in Malaysia or Australia for the past few years? For this, we'll need answer for both the country, yes or no in Malaysia, and yes or no in Australia. It's also a interesting general knowledge for us, and especially for those of them who contributing in this energy field. It will be a very interesting knowledge to know in Malaysia and Australia. All right, so Vignesh come with the answer of no. Or Vignesh comes with the answer of no, but will require answer for both. All right, here comes the answers from Lakshman. Sorry if I read your name mistaken. No in
Lakshman,
Malaysia, but yes Australia. Is that the correct answer?
yes. Yes, correct.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So no hybrid battery is installed in Malaysia, but it is installed in Australia. Congrats to Lakshman for winning these questions. And then I think we'll go for the Q&A sessions from the
Okay.
audience. So feel free to have your questions for Izidin in the comment section. So the first question here from So Suryana. So he would like to ask, would Sir mind sharing your opinion on marine energy in Malaysia?
Okay, basically on the marine engineering, if you relate to the wave and tide, as I mentioned earlier, the wave height in Malaysia is around 1 meter to 2 meter. So the most optimum one, the wave, if you compare to the European countries, is already more than 2 to 3 to 4 meter high. So currently still not feasible yet to implement in Malaysia unless you have the under the sea wave, which is I believe some university are doing some research, but we have not seen any commercialization yet in Malaysia. In other part of the world, yes, there is, especially in European countries, but more towards the wave. But I think if you see, they are putting a lot of a wind turbine at the coastline, at the sea line, near the offshore, near the shoreline at the sea, rather than focus on the marine. Marine still not yet fully optimized in terms of commercial. Okay.
All right. Thank you for these answers from Sir Izidin. I hope that answer your question. So
Mhm.
then next, we'll have a questions regarding the green building in Malaysia.
Mhm.
So, for your opinion, sir, how is the level of implementation of green building in Malaysia?
Uh, the green building have been accepted widely, especially for the new buildings project for the past 10 years from 2011 2013 until before COVID. But before COVID, during COVID, no one go to office. No one go to less people went to factories or no one go to shopping mall. So now it's gaining momentum back. Again, the issue is that green building it's quite costly for you to get the gold or platinum for GBI or gold for platinum from Leeds. Leeds from GBI from Malaysia, and also Green Mark from Singapore. So it's quite expensive to obtain, and it's quite expensive to maintain and to sustain it. But anyway, it's part of the branding and marketing for the building owner, for the some multinational company or even government linked company to show that they contribute towards reducing the carbon emission.
Mm.
But nowadays, if I'm not mistaken, under Kuala Lumpur Town Hall, which is Dewan Bandaraya Kuala Lumpur, already mandated all new buildings starting last year or this year must use at least 30% power source from the renewable energy. There will be a challenging part lah. So one of the way
Okay.
is you can buy the green electric tariff from our utility lah, TMB, which is you need to subscribe
Mhm.
on yearly basis, and the cost is increasing every year, especially due to the Ukraine and upcoming, you never know, Taiwan issues and so on. Okay, back to you.
Yeah. All right, I see.
Mm.
So I guess we'll have a last question from our
Okay.
winner just now. So there's a question from Lakshman. So he would like to ask, how is the prospect of old tech technology in Malaysia?
If I'm not mistaken, is it OTEC is the ocean technology energy? If I'm not mistaken, OTEC is more towards the ocean. I think it's related to the first question just now. Uh, can we check with Lashman now? Is it related to ocean technology or how is it?
Um, for ocean thermal energy
Oh,
conversion, sir.
still at the research stage, if I'm not mistaken, only by some university like I'm not sure, maybe Southampton, maybe UTM, or maybe some university in Terengganu. There is a potential, but the problem is in all new technology is to commercialize it and to make it lower the cost. In any technology introduction, is all about volume. It's like an electric vehicle. Last time it's quite expensive. Now it's gaining momentum due to the price dropping. So this ocean thermal, again on thermal, is a bit tricky because it require further call it, research and further we call it further research and also optimization. I believe there's always a future, but most probably may not be visible on this decade. It may be visible by next decade, but it's no harm to explore further. But the problem is the challenges part is compared thermal here or back in Indonesia. I think Indonesia we have like all the volcano ring there. So the geothermal, ocean thermal back in Indonesia, I believe is more promising compared to Malaysia because we are don't have so much thermal related to the volcano rings and so on. Okay, back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think Malaysia is still in progress in improving our green
Right.
technologies and all those
Yes.
energies.
All right.
Right. So I guess really one last question from
Mm-hmm.
Vignesh.
Mm-hmm.
So Vignesh is asking on who, or I think he meant who or which organizations is actively researching on developing new green technologies in Malaysia.
What I can say, the challenging part in Malaysia, we are the end user. We are the end user. Even our two big company related to energy, Petronas and also TMB, they have their own arm, which is TMB have their own TMB R&D, just adjacent beside to Uniten. So these are two, Uniten and TMB R&D is the one that do research on energy for TMB, and I believe Petronas have their own arm, which is the University Technology Petronas, and also in Perak, and also I believe they have research center in Bangi, also nearby Uniten and TMB R&D. So if I'm not mistaken, these are two conglomerate, two big company have their own research. Other than that, most of the research still within the university compound, as per se lah. If you want to talk about R&D by the commercial company or industry, we are more towards optimization only. We are towards the end user, not much on the R&D. Even we have a lot of factories on the solar panel, but most of it is like CKD or CBU. It's like we call it installation, make it good into one package. So other than that, we are not the producer of any like a hydro turbine. We still buy turbine for hydro from India, from Europe, even for turbine for our gas or fire power plants, still from European or even some from China and India. So we are still the end user country as of now. As for my knowledge, lah, I'm not sure. Maybe there's already some R&D, but still at the small scale lah, back in Malaysia. Okay, back to you, Jezia.
Yeah. All right. So from these sharings and also the Q&A session just now, I think we can say that Malaysia is currently still in the steps of research and trying to develop more in these green technologies.
Mhm.
But luckily, I think with this, we have professionals in this, like Dr. Izzidin, and also the future generations, like all our audience currently that are interested in all those green energies and green technologies. We believe in the future, our country, Malaysia, will also can be the one who leading in this green technology.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
So thank you, R. Izzidin, for the sharing just now,
Mhm.
and we really appreciate the sharing. We wish you a great day ahead.
Okay, no
So
problem.
thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. So next, we'll have our second speakers for the second sessions of our talk today. And our second speaker today is Dr. Benjamin Chong, a lecturer at the School of Electronic and Electrical Engineering at University of Leeds, United Kingdom. Dr. Benjamin is experienced in delivering a research-based education in the areas of renewable energy, power electronics for power systems. So with his 13 years of teaching experience in control system, power electronics, and renewable energy, we believe that Dr. Benjamin will bring us an interesting and meaningful talk today. So without any further ado, let's welcome Dr. Benjamin to have his talk on this energy. Welcome, Dr. Ben.
Hi, well, hello, good afternoon, all of you there. Um, Thanks for introducing me, Jia Xiang. So this is the topic that I'm going to present. I hope you all can hear my voice, and I think you can also see my face at the moment. Yeah, okay. If there's any problem, just let me know. Um, all right. So this is, as I said before, this is the topic that I'm going to present. It might have some overlap with IR Izzidin's talk just now, but if there is overlap, I'm sorry about that. But if hopefully you can gain some new things and new topics from this talk of mine here. So without waffling all the topics that or all the things that I'm going to say, I just try to introduce myself first, because you may be wondering why I'm here, or why I come from UK, and then how I end up in this talk and so on. So let me tell you who I am. I'm originally from Sarawak, Malaysia. I had my early education in Sarawak until secondary level, and I came to the UK about 20 years ago actually, and did my undergraduate and postgraduate, including my doctoral degree in the UK. In fact, I did all this degree at the same university that I'm working at the moment. In between my undergraduate and postgraduate, I actually work as an electrical engineer, all right, and at Sharika Sesko Berhad. We used to be called Sharika Sesko Berhad, and then I think it's for those who are from Sarawak, you might know this company, Sarawak Energy Berhad. Um, so these are my experiences that I had in mainly in Malaysia. And currently, I'm lecturer at the School of Electronic Electrical Engineering of the University of Leeds in UK. I'm not sure whether you know Leeds. Okay, some of you might know Leeds because of our football. Okay, you might know Manchester more, I'm sure, but I'm some of you might know Leeds because of football. Maybe if you watch football. Now, I'm the leader in the student education for all power engineering areas. So I'm leading, in other words, I'm managing all the programs, all the teaching activities within this area, all power engineering areas. So power engineering areas include power systems, power electronics, control, machines, and drives. I also do research in power electronics, mainly an application of power electronics in renewable energy system, and also power flow control in power systems. And all these activities are done within the Institute of Smart Energy System at the University of Leeds. There are a couple of colleagues of mine working together within this institute. So I'm one of them who is responsible for power electronics. And I also have some PhD students and also involved with some research projects as well. So that's all for my background. If you want to know more about me, you can always ask during the Q&A sessions or any other sessions if you can meet me later on. So let me just give you some idea about, or maybe I give you a quick introduction, because I think IR has done this before, or you might have seen this before in the last few talks. So let me just give you some definitions, a quick definition, a quick recap of sources of energy that we have so far. So up until now, okay, we use quite a lot of fossil fuel or fossil energy sources. They can be oil, based on oil, gas, coal, okay, and all these sources actually cannot be replaced in a time span of human significance. In other words, in order to create that, okay, you may have to go to, I'm not sure whether any geologists in this audience here, so you may have to go back to, you know, long, you know, maybe a million years or whatever, to in order to create the energy sources. So that cannot be created in human lifetime. Okay, all right, so these are the fossil fuel sources. Actually, that's why we call non-renewable energy sources. So in other words, they are limited and can eventually run out because they cannot be recreated. Then there is another group of energy sources. I'm sure you know about this. There are sun or energy sources based on sun or solar, wind, biomass, and tides. Now, biomass is a bit debate, okay, even among the academics, okay. Biomass is a big debate, okay, how sustainable it is, or whether it is a clean one, whether it's a green one. It really depends on what sources you take from biomass, because as you know, okay, if it's a true net zero energy source, okay, you shouldn't be contributing to the usage of carbon, okay, if in a biomass energy source. So you got to, there's a big debate, as I said, okay. It depends on where the energy source, or where the ultimate energy source comes from. But in general, they are all these renewable energy sources, they are replaced by natural processes, okay, at a rate compared to their use. What I mean by that is that, say for instance, the sun and wind, although where actually there is a use of solar energy, but it's quickly, wind, especially solar energy, is quickly replenished with incoming with more energy. Well, you know that there will be more solar energy all the time, every day, unless the sun doesn't shine, and you know, it's, of course, there will be the end of the world, of course. All right, the same thing for wind, okay. As long as there's a wind, you know, there is a gust of wind, then you know there will be some energy. So in other words, all these energy sources are unlimited. So let us look at facts, okay? We researchers do look at facts, okay? We don't just propose something without facts. So let's look at facts anyway. So if you look at, well, this is data for all over, well, this is data for global, I take it from IEA website. So actually, it represents the whole world. So it's not just Malaysia, not just UK or Europe, but all over the world. Okay, as you can see that quite clearly, that the renewable energy or renewable power, as stated here, the investment is rising steadily. Okay, in fact, rising even more within the last 5 years. And then if you can observe, there's blue, that purple, dark blue shade. Okay, you can see that battery storage is actually also rising, okay, especially in the last few years. And what you can notice actually is, if you look at fossil fuel, it's actually steadily increasing, not increasing significantly, but slowly decreasing. So you can see there is a trend here So the trend here is this is all over the place, all over the world. Yes, it's not just Europe, it's not just China, it's not just Malaysia, but all over the world. Okay, including Africa and South America and other developing countries. So if you can see that the fossil fuel actually is falling and renewable energy is rising. So there is a trend here, as you know. And also the trend also involves the technology used for renewable energy source. As you might have known about that already. Battery storage, battery itself is used more widely in with renewable energy sources, and you can see the cost spent on that is actually rising as well. There's one thing, if you look at electricity grids, it's quite a constant investment here. Okay, if you I haven't measured that yet, but if you can see that graphically, you can see the electricity grids, there's a quite constant investment there. So it's quite interesting to see why there is a constant investment in electricity grids. We'll come to that later on. So with the rise of these renewable energy sources, the question is, can our conventional electric power system cope with it? What do you think?
All right. So we'll welcome answers from our audience on the questions. Can our conventional electric power system cope with the growing renewable energy
Yeah.
sources?
So, this is not quiz, just for information. I just throw this question to all of you, and then before I go to the next slide, I will not answer that. So can anybody answer yes or no?
I think we'll need to wait for another 1 or 2 minutes because there are delays among the
Yes and no.
live stream.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, the answer. Well, I'll give you the answer slowly, and you can always think about that. And then at the end of this section, I'll give you the answer as well. Now, so just let me give you a picture what's happening at the moment and what's going to happen in the future. So at the moment, there is 3 distinctive levels of electric power systems. The first one, obviously, the generation level, where the fossil fuel energy is converted and generated and extracted as electrical energy, and then that energy is transferred through power system, which is through transmission and distribution networks before the energy is delivered to the loads. So loads are you and I. So we can be residential, commercial, industrial loads. At this stage, the energy management and control mainly are done within the production and transmission level. So mainly in the generation, which is the power plant, and also in transmission and distribution networks. So the power actually is flowing in one direction from the power plants or from the generation level all the way to the load. Now, so in near future, maybe when I say near future, it might have happened in some countries or some areas or even in some communities. So in near future, we have some renewable energy production, okay, along the transmission network. Say for instance, we have solar farms or we have wind farms, okay, and also some of us, I'm not sure whether you have solar panel at home, okay, maybe you don't have it, maybe your parents have them. So so some of you may have renewable energy in your office, at your office or at home, okay, on your roof, okay. So the loads also are integrated with renewable energy. Then in far future, when I said far future, it could be 10 years, 20 years, okay, it depends on the development in your country or within your community. All right, so there will be more renewable energy, and then because of policy, not just within the country, because of climate change, okay, motivations, all this, so we will have less fossil fuel energy productions. And not just that, okay, I'm not sure whether you know about that, the loads are controllable. So you have this concept of like, for instance, demand side management and so on. So your loads, okay, can be controlled or could be controlled. Okay, actually, you might be using some of the controllable device right now. Okay, at the moment. Okay, smart meter. Okay, smart meter is one of the devices that can be used later on for controllable loads. You might not be able to control with it yet, okay, but it will be used, or it can be used as your controllable load. Now, another thing, IR is in it. I heard, I did follow his talk just now. So he mentioned about EV. So yes, our load is also changing. So more energy is needed for transport and mobility, not just for EV, but also imagine in future you might have lots of robots, you might have lots of mobility vehicles for elderly. All right, all these require electrical energy, so loads are changing. All right, so it's not just lighting load or loads for home appliances, so you have other loads as well. So now the question here I asked was, can the conventional power system cope with all these changes, with the growth of renewable energy, not just renewable energy but also the loads as well? The answer is no. Okay, yes, the answer is no, actually. All right, the system cannot cope with that. A lot of utility companies, I'm sorry if you're from utility companies, a lot of utility companies, including those in the UK, all right, pretend that yes, the system can cope with it, but among the academics members, we know that the system cannot cope with that. There will be a problem in future if you have all these changes. Let's talk about AV. I'm going to quickly go through that, but just to give you an idea, okay, again, based on facts, okay, there is a rise in EV sales, okay, and also more consumers are willing to spend on EV. As you can see from here, okay, almost all region, either in Asia, in Europe, in America, okay, so all the EVs have, all the EV sales are growing actually in all regions. And also this is the willingness of consumers to buy EV or to spend on EV. Okay, you can see that the light purple color, more and more consumers are willing to spend. I'm not sure about you, but in general, okay, there is a greater willingness for consumers to spend on EV. Now, so what are we going to do then? It's not you might think, okay, it's the end of the world, because if we don't have the reliable power systems, you get blackouts every day or from now and then. But how do we cope with that then? Of course, there's a solution, or there's a potential solution for that. So in order to solve this problem, we need to have more control devices in power systems. So you think, okay, all right, if you might have seen in television, or you might have experienced before, in these power networks, you think that it's just conductors connecting one place to another place. Actually, it's not. Nowadays, we have several devices installed along the power lines. Okay, so maybe it's not happening in your country or in your community, but okay, slowly there will be more of these control devices. So what are they actually? So I just give you an overview, quick overview. What are these? There will be a long list of them, but I just give you a quick overview. Yeah. So there will be sensors, communication devices, power electronics, which is my area actually, which is used for power flow controller, interfacing units between new power system and old power system, and also energy storage devices, and also other control units for renewable energy sources and loads. Later on, you'll see I can point out that power electronics is actually one of the key components in here. Okay, because up until now, I never talk about electronics, I never talk about power electronics. But from this point onwards, or from this side onwards, you can see that power electronics is playing the key role. Okay, if you do not know what power electronics, I'll explain to you later in a minute. Okay, but power electronics is the key component actually within the power system. Okay, now if you notice, there is a change in colors. Yeah, if you look at my slide, okay, there is a dark blue color and there's a purple color with some green boxes. So actually, the dark blue is representing the AC power, and then the purple colored lines is representing the DC power. I think you should know what these green boxes are now. So they are actually the converters. Okay, so the it's actually power electronics that converts power from AC power to DC or vice versa. Okay, so you have all this. For those who are, I think if you are doing electronic electrical engineering degree program, so you know that there will be some power conversion along the lines, okay, especially within power systems and maybe in other systems as well, so let's say for instance drives. All right, okay, now if you notice, I also have some lines, some DC power lines connected directly to the load. Now it's not a mistake, okay? So there is a trend in doing that as well. I'm going to go through that later on as well. So there will be, I know at the moment if you go to your mains, okay, all you get is AC power. You wouldn't get DC power at all. But later in future, who knows? Okay, there will be some DC power going into your house. In fact, you might have that already. If you remember, you could actually charge your devices, electronic devices, with a USB. In fact, USB is actually DC power. So you are doing that, but at a very low voltage and power level. Okay. So why do we need AC and DC power transmission and distribution? I'm going to go back. I'm going to go straight to the answers. Yeah, you can always debate on that during the question and answer, and ask me about that, or let me know your opinion about that. But let me just give you some. I prepared this slide. I thought that some of you might not come from truly electrical engineering background, so therefore I give you these simple slides. Okay, so sorry for those who are not from electrical engineering, who are from electrical engineering background. So you should know this. You should have this at your fingertips anyway. So please bear with me, okay? I'm only present few slides on this. So let me just define power in a DC power system. Okay, in order to get the power, you need to, of course, look at the voltage and current. Okay, you multiply them together and you take the average. Okay, if you look at this example here, okay, if I have a constant voltage, if I have a current pulsating, even pulsating around 5 ampere, you still can get power. So this is how you get the power. Now, what is DC power then? What is DC power system then? DC power system is actually the system based on DC voltage and current. And what is DC voltage? What is DC current? In a very simple term, they have non-zero average. In other words, they have finite values. Okay, so for instance, this voltage has a finite value of 100. That current has a finite value of 5 ampere. Okay, and when you multiply together and then take the average, and you get 500 watt. All right, so this is actually a DC power system. Then in AC power systems, now, obviously, just now I said there is a non-zero average for DC. For AC, there will be zero average. I think you know that from your secondary schools. In AC, in sine waves, okay, there wouldn't be any average values. Okay, you take the average, okay, over a period, there wouldn't be average. So you can see current and voltage have no average. However, interestingly, when you take the product between two and then you average it, you will get the average power, which is 10 watt for this case. All right, okay. So there's a definition. Both voltage and current have zero average, but the power has no zero average. It has an average, and that average is your power. Okay. Now, of course, this is a very simple example. If you are from electrical engineering, you have all sorts of things, all sorts of power. You have reactive power and real power. So for this case here, let me just clarify that to you in case you want to make use of that in your future career or future undertaking. So for this case, because voltage and currents are in phase, okay, you only have real power or active power. Okay, so there's no reactive power. So why do we still need DC and AC power distribution and transmission? Now, let me just bring you to the level that you'll be bring you to the things that you are using almost every day. All right. So your power supply for electronic devices such as lithium batteries for lithium ion batteries for your phones and for your other electronic devices, they are based on DC power. Solar panel is also based on DC power. Fuel cell mainly is also based on DC power. Okay. Now, on the other hand, the existing conventional mains and all your other conventional home appliances or motors and so on, okay, are based on AC. However, you might argue that there will be some motors based on DC. I'll come to that when you have the third element. Yeah. So in the second group of elements, most of the conventional devices, appliances, they're all based on AC. You may be asking why AC? Or maybe I'll let you think about what question you need to ask later on. Why we have AC all the time until now, okay? Since the introduction of AC transmission by Nikola Tesla, why do we have AC power? So let me, I'll let you think about it, and then if you want, you can ask the questions. But wind turbine generator is also based on AC. It's not just wind turbine generator. Some other generators, such as could be biomass. Okay, sometimes it can be used. You can use AC generators for that, and also tidal generator. Okay, tidal wind tidal energy. All right, so any generator based on tidal energy will be or can use AC generators, but it might be different AC generator than your fossil plants in your fossil fuel power plant. Now, there's another group of elements which use both AC and DC. These are your electric vehicles, including trains. Okay, I'm not sure. Some of the trains in Malaysia could be using AC, could be using DC, but trains here, for instance, in the UK, all right, certain trains use DC, certain trains use AC, depending on the types of trains. Okay, high-speed train, low-speed train, so you get different machines. Okay, mainly AC machines will be used for high-speed train. All right, now, how do we deal with this then? If you have AC, you have DC, it's pretty confusing. Yes, it is confusing. Yes, the world is very complex. I know that. But how do we solve that? All right, as I said before, power electronic circuit will be the crucial component, will be the key component of all this mess now. Okay, because some of you might need DC power. Some of you still need AC power. When I say you can be residential, commercial, or industrial load. Okay, and you could have electric vehicles as well. So you can see this is just a part of the network actually, where the AC systems is running along with the DC systems. Yeah. So then each of these community, let's say you or the EV charging station or the industrial load or commercial load, okay, you have some DC-DC converter, you have some AC-DC converter. Okay, just let me get back to power electronic circuit because I might not mention that or I might not clarify that. What does power electronic circuit do? Actually, it actually converts power from AC to DC, DC to AC, or DC to DC. Okay, it depends on the application and the system as well. You can also have AC to AC power conversion. Okay, there are power electronic circuits that do that. Now, so in future, okay, this could be a potential structure for your power system where you have DC transmissions and power transmission systems or distribution system. And in between them or along with all these DC and AC systems, you have all these power electronic circuit. Okay, all right. I'm not going to go through the detail of it, like the controllability, how you operate that, what kind of system, how you do that. This is the detail of that. you might need to do a course on that, or you might need to look for information from the from textbook or from the literature. All right, now then, well, I'm sure you know about electronics, because up until now, as I haven't talked too much about electronics, okay? And electronics actually, well, you might regard electronics, for those who are not from electronic engineering background, you might regard electronics as low voltage, low power, or you might regard it as robotics and so on, or computers and so on. Yeah, actually, it's not. Electronics is used also in power systems. In fact, because of the advancing technology in semiconductor, embedded systems, sensors, communication systems, okay, power electronics is playing even more significant role in power systems. Okay, actually it gives rise to develop. Without power electronics, there wouldn't be any new development. Okay, you can see later on when I show you the facts anyway. So let me just give you a list of power electronics circuit, the trend and developments that we are using. Some of them I'm involved with them, and then some of them I also teach that as well in the postgraduate and undergraduate degree programs. So so these are the list. Okay, so actually I said I did mention just now, power electronic circuits are used for providing interface between two units and control the power flow in power systems. So power electronic circuit in general is actually a group of semiconductor devices, okay, put together. Now, the semiconductor devices are different from the semiconductor devices found in your phone or in your computers. Yeah, so they are actually rated at higher voltage and power, and normally they group together so that you can deliver even higher power and voltage. Okay, so for instance, modular multi-level DC-AC converters, it sounds very very advanced, okay, but it has been used all over the world, not just Europe, not just UK, but in China, in Brazil, and some other in India as well. So they are used already. So it will be slowly going into Southeast Asia as well. Okay, it is used especially in high voltage applications such as HVDC, okay, high voltage DC, or HVAC, or connection with offshore wind farms and so on, and power transmission in over a very long distance, such as in China or in Brazil. And you also have, okay, we also work with transformer-less DC-AC converters. So instead of using, well, transformer is, well, for those who are from electrical engineering background, okay, transformer is very important. It gives protection, but then it's very bulky. So what we come up with is to have an AC converter that avoid or that remove the need for transformer. Okay, so when we, for instance, we want to connect a solar panel to the grid, okay, we can remove this transformer, therefore we can reduce the size of the converter. And we also try to make it multi-terminal, make the converters multi-terminal. Why? Because we want to reduce the size as well, reduce the use of components and so on. Of course, power electronics can be expensive because of the number of components involved, the control circuits and so on. So we try to make it multi-terminal so that we can cut down the number of components. And of course, later on, the losses. And nowadays, because of the advancing semiconductor technology, we also start using wide bandgap power devices. So traditionally, devices of when I say power devices, it means transistors and diodes. Okay, I think you all know what transistors are. Okay, so transistors are made of semiconductor material. So traditionally, they are made of silicon material, but nowadays you get silicon carbide, gallium nitride as well. So we start to use that in our power electronics as well. But I must say that they are all limited to more of a low voltage and medium voltage applications at the moment. Okay, why they are used? Because you can use well, I'm not going to go through the detail about that, why we use that, but we can use much higher switching frequency, and then you can make it more compact. At the same time, you can achieve low loss. These are a few of the pictures. Of course, the one on the right, okay, this is not mine. This is taken from one of the company website, but these two circuits are the work of my students anyway. All right. One of them is actually the work of a PhD student. So as you can see, okay, or as I try to portray, the electric power system is inevitably becoming more complicated and complex. How do we manage it then? That's a big question. You may be asking, you might want to ask me about that. Okay, let me just give you give you some kind of facts. Okay, what is going on around the world? If you I'm not going to talk too much about the one on the right left hand side, but I will concentrate mainly on the yellow dots. Okay, if you look at the yellow dots, I'm not sure whether you can read the small prints here. Actually, the yellow dots represents the scheme, the management, the control. Okay, it could be some of the circuit as well, okay, like for instance sensors, okay, like for instance smart meter and so on. Okay, can you see that within the last 5 or 6 years, okay, actually the investment is actually rising, okay, steadily, as compared to the other things. What are the other things? The distribution network and transmission network. As you can see, the existing networks, okay, well, some of them might be falling, maybe due to the COVID pandemic anyway. But you can see, okay, it's rather stable. There's no rise at all, okay. And then the same thing for transmission. So you can see that the control management and the sensoring technology, the investment of all these actually is rising. Now you know why then, okay. We need more control. We need more management for such a more complicated system. So if you want to make your system more complicated, you will have to make it controllable and manageable as well. So in other words, electric power system is to become smarter. I'm not sure whether you heard this theme about smart. Okay, you have smart energy system, smart house, smart building, smart cars. What else? Smart office. Everything is smart. But what on earth is this smart? What is smart anyway? What's smart? How can a power system become smarter? Okay, so let me give you a picture why or how it can become smarter. So a smart power system must contain all these elements. I'm not going to list them out. You can read them. Okay, so it will involve circuitry such as power electronics, sensors, controllers, computing systems. Okay, it will involve extra elements such as energy storage, renewable energy sources, other sources that you have. Okay, and of course it will involve the existing grid infrastructure, but also at the bottom, which are the underlying parts actually, all right, are the information technology or the ICT, business models, okay, policies, legal framework, including government, policies and so on, consumers and consumer behavior. Now, for those who are sociology, you got to pay attention on that, because consumer behavior can influence the control and management of an energy system. Okay. Now, so how do you do this? How do you make it smarter? I only list out the elements. Then you got to make it, first of all, cost effective. So for instance, the power electronics. So my contribution is to make it more cost effective for make my power electronics to be more cost effective. So that is my contribution. What else? You need to make it more information based. So in other words, all these elements, okay, has to be information based, not just my power electronics, but other elements as well. Well integrated. So my power electronics has to work well with other elements like policies. Okay. So we need to bring in some legal people into the table to discuss about the design of our power electronics. How do you deal with that? Is there any policy limiting this design or not. So that is what I mean by well integrated. Now, it also has to favor local autonomy. So in other words, instead of controlling and managing the system from the top, we have to manage it at all levels already. So in other words, we need to have some autonomy, okay, especially at the lower level. So that's why you have that smart meter, you have that controllable load. So you can actually have some local autonomy on the system. And you need to make it secure, because all this become well integrated, as you know that there is a lot of hacking, there's a lot of security problems, okay, or attacked by other countries. So you need to make it more secure, the system itself, because this is one of the risks. Yeah, so if you make it more integrated, make it more connected to the internet, there is a risk for the system to be brought down by attacks or by cyber attacks, for instance. Okay, so you need to make it more secure, and then you also need to make it highly adaptable. So AI is coming in. So if you know about AI is coming into some smart power system as well. So AI can be used as part of the control and management as well. In other words, the system has to be more intelligent, energy intelligent. Okay, so it's not just intelligent only, but it also has to be energy intelligent. Then, how can you contribute to this development then? All right, I expect you coming from all sorts of engineering background. You might be coming from other STEM subjects, or you might be coming from non-STEM subjects as well. Okay, so how can you contribute that? All I've been talking about is mainly electronics and power system and so on. You might not be interested in it, but how can you contribute to this environment, in this development? So if you just remember the last slide that I have about the smart energy systems, okay, actually it requires quite a lot of skills, a wide range of skills to design that. Just for instance, like if I need to design a, a power system for rural area, so I need to bring in not just power electronics or power system engineers, but also I should be bringing people from the policy, from the legal framework, from the communication side, okay, from the sociology. So I need to know, okay, what is the consumer behavior so that I can design the system properly. So now, if you are doing sociology or law or whatever, you know where your contribution is at the moment. Okay, you can come in and then help design our system. So it's not just limited to electrical engineering subjects or engineering subjects as general. All right, the jobs that you'll be doing must be multidimensional. So it's not just us involving research and design, but also it involves manufacturing, sales, operation and maintenance, management, legal framework, and policy making. You might be doing a solicitor just dealing with energy framework, or you might be a solicitor that deals with, okay, there are some companies who actually have, okay, legal team who actually involved with all these legal issues. It's not just about court cases, but it's also about rules and regulations. Okay, and also the whole process should start from conceptual to the operation stage. So all this involvement, okay, the comprehensive involvement between all sorts of people should start from the conceptual stage to the operational stage and maintenance stage. And then it should have a close collaboration, as you can see from that. So in other words, whoever you are from, whoever you are, okay, you are important, okay, in this development. So it's not just one person or one group of people only. Okay, so it's not just involved with one group of people with the same interest and expertise. Okay, so I hope you have inspired by this, this motivation and this the especially the last slide. Okay, and thank you for your attention, and then I hope you have gained something. And if you have any questions, you may ask, or if you want to discuss further with me privately, you can also send me an email or just check out our website, okay, of my university. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ben, for the sharing just now. So, for any audience that have any questions regarding these slides, the content, or you have any further questions on the energies in Malaysia or even globally, do leave your comment in the do have your questions in the comment sections, and we'll have Dr. Ben to help in solving the questions. So I guess we'll start from me, Dr. Ben. So Doctor have introduced that the smart power system just now, and have talked a bit on the AI is bringing in for a smarter power system. So, what will be the role of AI or a well-designed system is important in this smart power system?
All right. AI contribution in power systems, okay, can be found in two levels. So the first one is in the design stage. So you could use AI to, for instance, to identify the location. Okay, this is a example development, yeah. So which my colleagues are working on. So you can also you can use, first of all, AI to locate the power generators or the optimal location for solar farms or wind farms or even biomass generators, and you can locate them properly or optimally. Okay, so AI is a tool, can be used as a tool, okay, in the design stage. Now AI also can be used in the in the operation stage. So for instance, that if I have an existing power network, okay, so you can actually use AI to tell how much power the generator should generate, or you can actually optimize the operation of the power system in general. Okay, so why do we use that? You may be wondering, why don't we just solve it with just simple mathematical equations? If you know AI very well, but this is actually different from AI, from traditional mathematical equations. So why don't we use traditional mathematical equation? It's because power system is becoming more complex. So the order of equation will be very, very high. So in order to solve it, you need a very high computational power. So therefore, we need a tool to solve it in a quicker time, in a quicker process. So AI is one of them. So we can use AI, or we could use AI to solve it. Of course, this involves a design stage. So for those who are doing that, they will have to identify what AI they use. Okay, how do they implement it? At what stage they're implementing it? And then, of course, you need to have a lot of data to do it anyway. So it's not the perfect solution, but then it can actually help in terms of computation. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right, I see. Understood on that. So it's still mainly will need a system that assists us in like managing all the usage and maybe how many power that should be supplied. So it actually still included many calculations that will need tools to help us.
Yeah.
Right.
So AI is like a use as a optimization tool rather than you will have all these sensors. Well, yes. Another thing is there's a lot of sensors coming in. Yeah. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
inputs coming in. So you need to process it. So much data to process. So AI is one of the tools where you can process the data and then generate the output or tell the power system to operate optimally.
Mhm. Understood. Then, because our theme of MSTW this year is sustainability, so I'll also talk more on this green energy or clean energy. So, in Doctor opinion, what is the largest challenge right now in the application of green energy or clean energy in replacing the traditional energy power source?
Well, I think there are there are two level. Okay, as I'm just trying to point it out from the point of from the perspective of academics. Okay, because industry may have their own perspective. There are two challenges, twofold challenges. The first one is, well, these two challenges may affect each other. Okay, so the first challenge is the technology. Okay, so technology, yes, it is advancing. Okay, but you cannot just deploy a technology within days or within weeks. Okay, so say for instance, whatever we do in the lab, okay, you cannot just say, all right, let us implement it next week or next month or next year. So it might take time, some of them. Okay, and not just all of them, but some of them. So for instance, like battery system, as you know that, okay, the greatest challenge in an electric vehicle is the battery itself. It's heavy anyway. Yes, it is heavy. So that is why is it heavy? Because the research on that, you know, it is going to the right direction, but then it's still quite heavy, and it's still the main obstacle in electric vehicles, because it's the weight that gives the problem to the car. So technology is one of them. So we have the people. I'm sure there are a lot of right people around the world to come out with the technology, but it's the speed, it's the time that they need. Okay, in comparison with the consequence of all these fossil fuels and so on. So well, I'm sure you read about news about climate change and so on. So the consequence of all these climate change and all that, okay, is actually much faster than the development of the technology. So this one thing I must point out. Second is policies. Okay, without the right legal framework, without the right policies, there wouldn't be any technology. So if, say for instance, if there's no motivation, motivation from the legal framework, say for instance, there's no framework for you to implement such a solution, you wouldn't be able to do it. Okay, so like us, we researchers, we can't do anything if we are not allowed, or we cannot do, if, well, there's no point for doing it anyway. And it could be the other way around. It could be because of the framework, then we have to do it, then there will be some development, and there will be some innovation. So say for instance, in the UK, we have a target to achieve. We have to achieve net zero carbon target. Okay, because of that, there will be some research activities, there will be some goals. At the end of the day, there will be some jobs for engineers. Okay, so in general, okay, legal framework, okay, yes, it's limited, but then you can make use of it to create something, and then eventually you create jobs for all the young engineers.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Noted on that. So I guess we'll have a last question here, because we need to end it before 4 for the next sessions. So last questions to Doctor. Since most of our audience are still students in university, do you have any advice